if it wasn't for Muhammad, the last prophet, our race would overshadow the Jews and Hebrews, the Jewish and Hebrew scripture, prophets and scriptures. Our race history would overshadow it. The most talked about plight of people would no longer be the plight of the Hebrews, would be the plight of the African American people or the black people. And it would be no more of their prophets that people would be talking about and looking at. It would be Frederick Douglass, Dr. Martin Luther King, and even Elijah Muhammad that the people would be looking at. And they would say, here is a sign that God exists. Here is a sign that God is a God of justice. They look, they brought our forefathers or the forefathers of these people. See, we would say it and others would say it of us. They brought the forefathers of these people to this land and completely separated them from all knowledge of their past. They cut them off from their land, from their life, from their cultural life, from their history and everything, and raised them as empty vessels, as animals with no human recollection at all. And God, the God of justice, came to them and quickened in the dead matter of the slave a desire to be a man until there was a Frederick Douglass lashing out, cutting into the heart and soul and conscience of the white rulers until he caused them to repent. And they say, we can't continue this. The slave must be emancipated. Yes, it would be told in that light. It would be told in that context, in the context of Scripture. I've read about the moaning and groaning of the Hebrews and how God heard their moaning and groaning. And well, they were told to make straw, and not even to use bricks. That's a hell of a thing to tell somebody to do. No, pardon me, told to make mortar, make bricks. They were told to make bricks, but just with mud, no straw. And you know you had to have the two together. That simple way of making bricks back there, you couldn't make it out. You had to put the straw in there to hold the mud together. So they were told that, make it without straw, But when I look at what we were told in this country, from day one, even till now, I think our sad story deserves more attention than their sad story. For at least they were expecting a deliverer. Even had an idea of how that deliverer should look, what kind of idea he should have in his mind, what his interest should be, and they had a belief that he would be in opposition to oppressive Egypt. They had an idea of Moses before there was a Moses. We had no idea of a Frederick Douglass until there was a Frederick Douglass, because there was nothing told us.
Teach it.
Huh? Yes. Very special people. Now, why am I telling you all this? So you can think yourself special with God. So you can think yourself special with God. Oh, yes. No, we don't have a prophet in the prophetic scheme or in the classical scheme of prophets, because that means one thing and the reality means another. We are yet like them and even greater. We are greater people than the Hebrews. We are greater people than the Jews. Our Frederick Douglass is like Moses and greater. You know what we will do? Now, just to sober you up so you don't go crazy. I have not told you that so that you will have some arrogance, some high nose over other people. No. When God comes to a people, he comes to a people because divine wisdom and divine plan ordered that. Yes. He doesn't come just because your sickness is worse.
Go ahead.
Your death was more pitiful. No, that's not the only reason. He looks at what affects his will, what influence, what interferes with his will, what interferes with his light, reaching his people, his creation, his dependents, us, humans. And then he responds and advances his plan. So why have I said this? Why have I pointed and compared our history, our suffering, and have said that a God of justice should come to us, should hear us, if that God heard the suffering of other people and came to them? Why have I said that? I said that to say this. God has come to us. God has responded to us. God has chosen us. Chosen us for what? Chosen us to send the message again that's been sent by prophets over and over again, and especially by Muhammad, to those who would take and separate or isolate a group of people from the family of man for mistreatment, for servitude, etc. The message comes again that no matter how elaborate your scheme, no matter how treacherous your scheme, how deceitful your scheme, how complex, how hard to decode your program that you may use to hold the people down and deny them admittance, the God of heaven and earth sees you long before you start your thing and already have a plan to undo your works before you even began your works. And now God will take that you put down and find in it someone worthy for him to embrace. Don't think God embrace a black man or a black woman just because they've been kicked in the butt so many times, or just because they've been rejected so many times, or just because they have so many stripes from lashes and inflictions, from white man's rule or something. No, that's not what brings God to pick up a black man. When God see a black man in that state, crushed and beaten and denied and rejected and cut off from all understanding, but he's yet trying to be a decent human being, then God picks him up. And he said, here's the thing that you reject. Here's the thing that you single out for abuses. The thing that you cut off from his humanity. I will take this thing you have cut off from humanity. And because you don't have as much conscience as it has in it, I'm going to raise it up to be your example, to be your model, to be your boss. Oh, yes, we have been chosen. We have been chosen because of the circumstances, because of our history, because of the circumstances in our life. We have been chosen to be raised up and be models for the world. It is going to come whether I preach, whether Jesse Jackson preach. We don't have to preach. You will preach. Your children will preach. It's going to come.
Across the South, suppression tactics like literacy tests and poll taxes are widely used to prevent Black citizens from voting. In Selma, local activists have been fighting these illegal measures for decades. In 1965, the national movement joins their fight.
Selma was a city about 36,000 people at the time I was growing up. It was a city that was dominated by the white power structure. It was a city where Black people had no rights. This was a vicious, violent system against people of African descent. You could die trying to register to vote, and wasn't nobody gonna do anything about it.
Like Bull Connor in Birmingham, Sheriff Jim Clark has Selma under tight control. To prevent marches and mass protests, he issues a citywide injunction prohibiting the public assembly of groups larger than 3 people.
Every time we marched, there was a possibility that we would never see our mama again.
I think a lot of us fear for safety. But when you place the fear of safety in the midst of the practice of oppression, you don't have much choice.
Local activist Amelia Boynton has been leading the grassroots movement, fighting for voters' rights in Selma.
Mrs. Boynton had been registering voters since 1932, and she's one of the unsung heroes of this movement. It was at her request that we came to Selma. The churches that tried to have voter registration meetings, Jim Clark wouldn't let anybody in. And he had literally created a police state.
This courthouse does not belong to Sheriff Clark. This courthouse belongs to the people of Dallas County, and these are the people of Dallas County, and they have come to register. You must realize that this is a national issue. It's not a Selma issue. It's not an Alabama issue. This is a national issue.
The SCLC intends to make this injustice an issue the nation can't ignore. Selma will be the starting point for a 50-mile march to the State House in Montgomery, where the people will present their demands to Governor Wallace himself. 500 protesters with activist John Lewis in the lead set out for the Capitol. But just across the bridge, Sheriff Clark is waiting with an army of deputies.
Once you get to the apex of the bridge, ain't no turning back. You got to go now. You got to move. So you can't walk down there scared. And so we kept on walking. And we got down to the bottom of the bridge.
When they told us to stop, you can see the horses. You can see them. They were ready. Their shoes was shiny. They had everything. Nobody expected Sunday to be bloody because the cameras was there. The whole world was watching.
We thought they were going to be arrested, but instead, Sheriff Clark rode through the crowd on horseback, beating people.
John Lewis and them said, let's get on our knees and pray. And as we was praying, that's when you heard them gas caps open up. And when you heard them open up and you open your eyes, went up with that white gas all around you. Then they said, y'all got to get out of here. A couple of people was hurt. Some people went directly to the hospital.
Selma organizer Amelia Boynton is among those brutally beaten on the bridge, knocked unconscious by a billy club.
We thought she was dead. The reason we thought she was dead because they put her on a hearse and take her to the hospital.
CBS interrupted the showing of Judgment at Nuremberg on that Sunday night to show those peaceful protesters being beaten on that bridge. It woke up many parts of America that had turned away from fully understanding what the fight for equal rights was really all about.
Let it.
as a child, whatever name you believe it to be, in spirit or in science, Ashe. We pour to the first human beings who came into existence on this planet, the first human beings who raised the first structures, who cooked the first meals, who taught the first children, who had the first children, the first Africans, the first people who stood upright, who walked, who figured out how to stay on this planet, who figured out how to pass that knowledge on to their children and their children's children, the mothers and fathers of civilization, Ashe. We pour the next libation to their grandchildren, their children's children, those who raised the great early civilizations of Kemet and Kush and Monomotapa, the great medieval civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai and Kanem Bornu. We pour to those who the great civilizations of the Igbo people and the Hausa people and the Kikongo people and the Mambara people, the great Mande civilizations, the great Kikongo, the great civilizations of Southern Africa, the Bantu people, the great civilizations of Southeast Africa, the Dinka, the Shilluk, the Noor. We pour to those millions who raised the foundations from which the world would learn what it meant to be human in the world, Ashe. We pour to their children who, upon the arrival on the shores of people they had never seen before, found themselves captured and marched overland, found themselves perishing by the millions before they were held on the holding cells and the open air pens on the coast of West, Central, Southern, and East Africa. We pour to the ancestors who did not know as they were stripped of all clothing and sent denuded into boats, packed like animals, and strewn their bones across the floor of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We pour to them who in the last moment on Africa grabbed the sand and grabbed the dirt and put it in their mouths and understood that the only thing they might have to preserve their place in that continent was their memory of that place and their ability to pass it on to their children. We pour to them, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to those Africans and their children who finding themselves cast adrift in Santiago, Cuba, who found themselves cast adrift in Porto, Spain, Trinidad, and Port-au-Prince, Haiti, who found themselves cast adrift in New Orleans and Charleston and Mobile, who found themselves cast adrift in Salvador, Bahia, who found themselves cast adrift in Barbados and the archipelago that formed the wayward and the windward coast. We found them in these places learning Portuguese and Spanish and French, whose often first words was, "Oh my God, oh Madre de Dios," who found themselves praying to survive and pass on to their children the memories. We pour to those ancestors who are represented in the thousands buried in all the square miles of where we stand, and who sit here buried before us in 400 caskets forged of wood from West Africa with Adinkra symbols. Each one of them, each woman, man, and child, symbolic of millions. The children of those who could not be killed, we pour, Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who somehow survived the hells of enslavement and fought for emancipation in the Caribbean, the French, British, Dutch Caribbean, who fought for emancipation in South America, who fought for emancipation in Central America, who fought the struggles we refer to as the Civil War in the United States, who came out of that, marched out of enslavement through Reconstruction, and found themselves making great migrations, eventually ending up in places like New York. Their children's children, who making a way for themselves, became our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents. Those who, when the first bones were discovered in this space, held their hands and said, "Stop, no more." We are here to speak for those who can no longer speak with their mouths. We pour for those ancestors, some of whom came to Howard University in 2004 and followed these caskets all the way back to New York. The ones whose names we know and the ones whose names we don't. And at this moment, as we pour this libation, I would ask anyone who feels comfortable to say the name of someone in your bloodline who is no longer physically here, but who you know made it possible for you to be here. Go ahead, let's hear the names. We pour to the names that we hold collectively. Ganga Zumba in Brazil, Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the great Avengers, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica. We pour to the great ancestors, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass. Say the names that you study.
Who are the names of the ancestors that you have come to hold in your heart and your mind as you hope that you can do what they did for us, for your children and children's children? Let's say some of those famous names. Malcolm
Kwame
X,
Ture,
Elu Hamer,
Honorable Elijah
Marvin,
Muhammad,
John Henry Clark, John
Dr.
G.
Khalid
Jackson,
Muhammad.
Jacob Carruthers. And finally, two final libations. We pour to those who make it possible for us to do what we do. We pour to these rangers who stand guardian over this sacred space. We pour to these Africans and these folks who have come from Howard University, the staff, the faculty, the administrators who brought us here today to bear witness. This is not a libation, but an affirmation, because their hearts still beat, their tongues still speak, their minds still think, and their minds still wish the best for us. We pour for all of those people who surrounded us on this journey today and made it possible for us to be here. We pour this affirmation of thanks, Ashe.
Ashe.
And finally, we pour to your children's children's children who will one day stand on this space and speak your name. Ashe.
Ashe.
The Ancestral Rock. Standing on the Ancestral Rock. Can you feel it? I know you feel it. The thing about it, that's everyone's reality, whether we know it or not, you know. We're the sum total of the reality of our ancestors, our Egungun. Many different names have been ascribed to them through the years by different cultures of the world. Everybody. It's just part of a natural science of life, you know. So what we are grateful for is the ability to express that extra loud and extra clear in the atmosphere. Every Thursday afternoon from 2 to 4, we're right here on WRFG Atlanta 89.3 FM.
Too soon.
Our sister Angie Stone with a word to the wise. With a word to the wise. That's from 25 years ago, live in Prague or in the Netherlands. And we're grateful again for all of those contributors to our liberation journey in many different ways. To get us started, we're on the phone line. We are on live with a brother who need no introduction to many of us in the Atlanta community and even nationally, because he's been doing the beautiful liberation work for many years. You know, he wears many crowns in the community, and one of them that I know of personally, intimately, is that he's often called to pour a libation, just like Dr. Greg Electro Carr just did for us, as customary on the Ancestral Rock. Also want to give thanks for Imam Warathim Muhammad, who gave us a word to the wise, you know, another great ancestor, one who took cosmic, ancient teachings and made them very relevant to African people in the wilderness. You know them way there? So this is the work of the ancestors, not just people who have passed away, but people who, when they live their life, live with deep and intentional purpose. You know, people who have contributed, who've made the world better than it was when they found it. So tune in to yourself. We thank you for tuning in with us all afternoon. In between our conversation with two special guests, we're going to be celebrating the life work of people like Angie Stone and Baba Roy Ayers, of course. Got to give us good vibration, and that's the soundtrack to the evolution. In the meantime, in between time, I don't want to delay him on his movement. Want to join us now in the radio audience. Let me see, make sure this is good. Should be good. Our brother Baba Jamoke Ifatayo joining us to talk about Bloody Sunday, which y'all heard a little clip, which did a little small thing of revisiting some of the basic, I guess, background story. And we always know that what is presented to us is only half of the story.
And so part of our long time journey is to uncover the other half, the half that's never been told, you know. Baba Jamoke, good afternoon. Welcome to the Ancestral Rock. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can.
All right,
Definitely.
very good.
Give thanks. Give
All
thanks.
right.
Thanks.
Yes, well, first, give thanks. I don't know. It seems like I'm having a little bit of reception issues. I've tried 2 different locations. I pulled over, but I've tried 2 different locations. So we'll see how well we do. Okay.
Yeah, we hear you clearly though. We hear you clearly. So it might be a
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Great.
The main thing is
All
don't
right.
turn up the
So
radio.
first,
Just listen to the to whatever the volume is on your phone. I think we'll be good.
all right. Let's start off with Ramadan Mubarak
Ramadan Mubarak.
and Ramadan Kareem.
I say.
Yes. All right, and thank you for already opening us up with some of our story of Selma, so I don't have to go too much into that.
True.
And then also thank you for starting us off with the Grand Ancestral Libation or Tampico by Dr. Carr, so I don't have to go and do that. So you've already moved us along. We can get right into it.
Yes,
I
sir.
do want to though salute as we as we sit in what's known as Her Story Month. You know, just briefly salute some key people. Iya Fulani Sunni Ali, who's an ancestor now, Ashe, who worked on WRFG and who was followed up by Sister Courage, Queen Mother Injiri Agani.
Yes, sir.
We worked together in the reparations movement, and as well as want to lift up Queen Mother Moore and another person that I think is very important that we want to bring her name more into the reparations conversation, Queen Mother Dorothy Benton Lewis. So just want to lift those people up in the tradition, in the reparations tradition. And there's others we could go, of course, Callie House and many others. So yeah, so we want to, like I said, just get right to it, and just thank you again for giving us an opportunity to speak to people. So today, we're actually, as you can see, on the road heading to Selma, and in Selma, this is the 60th anniversary of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee. The 30th anniversary of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee, which is when they started commemorating it. But it's the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the ceremonies that has been a part of the Bridge Crossing Jubilee activities is over 50, 60 different activities, and we can come back to that happen. Well, one of the ceremonies that happens every year is something called the Hall of Resistance induction ceremony. And so this year I volunteered to coordinate that ceremony. And so it's with great honor that we present to the community this year's Hall of Resistance induction ceremony. And so I decided to make the theme around, I don't know if I had a theme before in the past or not, but I decided to make the theme around political prisoners, prisoners of war, and those in exile. And we added a few others. And so, because I think sometimes we don't really uplift those people enough.
True.
And so this year we're honoring or inducting into the Hall of Resistance is Sundiata Akoli, Imam Jamil Al-Amin, Mumia Abu Jamal, Pam Africa, Asada Shakur, Geronimo Jijaga, Kathleen Cleaver, and I should have had the list in front of me, and I know also Malcolm X, as we honor him as this is the 100th anniversary of his birth,
yes,
and also the 60th anniversary of his assassination. So, and we left off Leonard Peltier.
True.
Yes,
True.
Leonard Peltier.
That's a beautiful.
And so those are the people that we're honoring.
Sorry, I can
Go
tell
ahead.
there's a delay. That's a beautiful mix of ancestors who have gone over and ones who are still here. As we say, living ancestors. People who are still in the flesh and really, truly representing that human spirit of truth and justice and liberty and all of them beautiful things that are talked about so often, but sometimes seem to be cliche.
Yeah, so again, we're real proud of this. And one of the things that I'm most proud of that is that we've been doing this ceremony for years, but it hasn't been well documented to my knowledge. And so what I decided to do was to produce a souvenir program book to really document this ceremony that happens every year. And it was really good because when we started to do the research on the stories behind the stories of the Hall of Resistance, we started uncovering some information, and you will love this. But Rob Scofield, because one of the stories we uncovered was while we knew that Tom Feelings had donated a picture that he did, a painting that he did called Resistance, to the Hall of Resistance. He donated to Mama Faya Toure, who was the visionary behind this, and we lift her up as a strong hero, a strong Shiro in Selma, and the one who actually coordinates all of these activities during the Selma Bridge Jubilee crossing. And so the Hall of Induction, like I said, just one of maybe 50, 60 activities that are going on. So he donated this painting, and it was called Resistance. However, when I dug deeper, I found out that the painting was based on what happened in Buxton, Guyana, your homeland, where the people were really on the move right after enslavement and were making things happen in their town, buying land and setting up businesses and being successful. And there was some laws that were getting ready to be passed to kind of put a damper on all of that. So the people heard that the governor was coming through town on this train, so they decided to put their bodies in front of the train and block the train, made the governor get off the train and negotiate with him such that he pulled back that legislation that was going to be passed. Wow. So this is the painting that Tom Feelings, who lived in Guyana. Yeah. That's how you knew the story, I'm sure, right? And so this is the painting that is the symbolism of the Hall of Resistance. And so we put that on the cover of the book. We're going to hold it up here. You can see, I don't know if you can see that, how well you can see that, but this is the painting that he did that is on the cover of the book. And we also tell the whole story about the train and Tom Feelings, and everything is in the book. And so, again, those were some of the stories that we unfolded, and we also unfolded about Sister Maria Keita, who is the person that really inspired Faya to do this Hall of Resistance, who is an activist in Mali. And her focus has really been around African-centered education in Mali, because in Mali they get the French story. And so she was really wanting them to get more of the African story. And she was so successful in her doing that they actually ended up putting her in jail for that freedom work and that resistance work. But her and Mama Faya had a conversation about all the resistance that has happened in our community, and that there should be a place to honor resistance. And so that was what gave her the idea to do that. And I'll put a pause there.
You gave us a full sip already. We give thanks. We're talking about Baba Jamoke on his way to Selma, and we're reflecting on 60 years of Bloody Sunday. Baba, I mean, it's something we could talk about all day, honestly, because there's so many layers and beautiful layers and chambers to our story, even as it relates to Selma. I want to ask you something as a means of really confronting what I feel to be something that's very divisive and ahistorical trend in our community. Also something that has been constant, which is divide and rule. So there's still conversation to this day that would suggest that a lot of the work that the civil rights workers and human rights workers did, even as they were exercising in Bloody Sunday, was irrelevant to our struggle, because you can't win the liberation by the vote and all that kind of stuff. And to me, even if one is a nationalist, even if one is a Pan-Africanist that clearly understands the illegitimacy of this empire, that seems, again, at very least, to be ahistorical. So I want to ask you, in that context, in that spirit, to kind of share with us why it is, even yourself as a new African, someone who is clearly a Pan-African, why is it important to you to still participate in a Bloody Sunday commemoration?
That's a very good question. You know, one of the things that comes to mind when in asking that question or answering that question is something I remember Dick Gregory saying, and I'm paraphrasing, but basically he was saying one of the major accomplishments that he feel like Martin Luther King made, and he says not so much legislation and all these different things. He said it was helping to remove the fear that black people had to stand up against resistance, to stand up against the system. And he felt that if you really analyze the civil rights movement, that's the biggest success story of the civil rights movement. Because even if you're a black nationalist, or if you're a Pan-Africanist, like, what are we doing to actually stand up and confront the system? Right? We know we had examples like and we mentioned some of them, Assata Shakur, Sundiata Acoli, who were part of the Black Liberation Army and things like that. But in general, like, how are we actually confronting the system? That's, to me, one of the main things that Martin Luther King pushed. People always say nonviolence, but it was nonviolent direct action. Mm-hmm. And he was very clear that if you're not confronting the system, unfortunately, a lot of times I say we have these commemorations and rallies that are on the weekend, and we're not really confronting the system. But what I think again, one of the lessons is the confrontation part. The other thing I would say is that, you know, you take wins on as many different levels as you can take wins. So people getting more empowered to get into electoral politics, to make a change. There's things that have happened. We could talk about so many people that have made a change, maybe even just at the local level, at their school board level, at their county level, at their city level, that was able to open up doors, was able to create opportunities, able to bring resources into the community. All of those things help to move us forward and strengthen us on the path to what some would say real liberation or real freedom, which would be, you know, as you said, I'm a black nationalist, and so that would be separation, have our own nation state. But on that journey, we have to be able to have the fear to challenge, not have the fear, right, to challenge the system, and the more infrastructure and resources and things that we've able to garner along the way helps us to move along that way. I'll give one more example that I think that's important, and that was Chokwe Lumumba becoming the mayor of Jackson. And with him becoming the mayor of Jackson, the whole idea was that this is an experiment. Mm-hmm. This is an experiment. If we want to rule a nation, let's start with ruling a city. Mm-hmm. And what would that look like if a black nationalist rules a city? And you got to deal with, like, really basic city concerns like roads and water and electricity and those kind of things if you're talking about managing a nation. So it was a grand experiment of and people recognized who he was. Even the governor recognized that, you know, he was a black nationalist in a positive way at his homegoing. I was there. And so, you know, so I think that, again, that's what the electoral politics help us to do, was to, I'm just using that as an example of how electoral politics was able to get someone who has a black nationalist mindset to come into office and to begin to implement policies. And again, it was a whole big plan. We'll get into all that. It was called the Kush District, how the idea was to actually let Jackson be the economic engine for about 12 or 15 counties that surrounded Jackson, to again push empowerment, to push innovation, to push entrepreneurship, to push black political power in that area, which is a key area inside of what we call the Republic of New Africa. So I hope that answered your question.
Yes, it does. Absolutely. I appreciate you. Love you.
And also, I just want to say this personally. A lot of the reason I like to come to Selma is because it is also an opportunity to have these conversations with the civil rights community. I used to carry a sign in the march that said "From voting rights to plebiscite," so then I could have the conversation of what, you know, would look for us to have our own national plebiscite. Not a vote within their government, but a vote that we have among ourselves to determine who wants to go back to Africa, who wants a sovereign nation state, who wants reparations, what forms reparations could be in. So we've been having these conversations in Selma. We've been having reparations conversations. We have had, matter of fact, this year we'll have a workshop on political prisoners and prisoners of war inside of Selma. And so oftentimes the work is to raise the consciousness of our civil rights and human rights activists around reparations, around even separation. So that's another reason why I personally go to Selma.
Give thanks. We are speaking with Baba Jamoke if Fataya, before we let you go, I would also say, because I would like for you to just give the details so people can come down, of course, or people can touch base, I should say, and do whatever they are feel led to do in terms of celebrating the commemoration or celebrating this commemoration. Let me put it that way. But even when I think of even Selma, as a matter of fact, what I heard about Malcolm X, what you shared, just another virtue of our collective solidarity politics, is just based on the love of our people. That to me, that distinguishes. If you mentioned Baba Chokwe Lumumba, he said one time, of course, that if you do not love the people, you will eventually betray the people. Or Che Guevara, who said, the revolutionary, at the risk of seeming ridiculous, let me state that the revolutionary is guided by feelings of great love. And it seems that that's one of those things, love, that has been made cliche because of empty promises and all that kind of stuff. However, it's very practical and very tangible and needs to be highlighted. What I was going to say is that the story of El Haj Malik Shabazz, Malcolm X, a perfect example is that even though he was very critical of the nonviolent aspect of the movement, he didn't just stop with being critical. He sent soldiers to train the people how to disarm the dogs. You know what I'm saying? He didn't just say, them Negroes. You know what I'm saying? Perfect example.
Right.
So we salute you for the work you're doing. We thank you for making us aware of what's happening. Please give us the what and the where again, and any contact information if family wants to stay in touch.
Sure. And let me just add this one more Malcolm story because it's relevant to Selma. He came to Selma a few weeks before he was assassinated.
Exactly.
And he met with Coretta King. Martin Luther King was in jail, and he met with Coretta Scott King. And he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but people familiar with this, is that he said, look, you need to tell Martin to tell them that they probably would rather negotiate with him than negotiate with me. And so, we don't know what impact that had, but we know that was said. That conversation was had. And so, so Selma basically activities begin this evening with a traditional town hall meeting that's been from the time they first had the march. There was a town hall meeting the Thursday prior, and so that's what kind of kicks off everything is the town hall meeting on Thursday. And I'm not sure who the keynote speakers are, but they usually have a very profound minister, nationally recognized minister often, who is a keynote speaker. I know Reverend Barber has been a keynote speaker before, I believe. And so that happens on Thursday, and then, like I said, there's a bunch of activities all through the week, through the weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Sunday is the actual reenactment where we start at Brown Chapel AME where the march started, and there's a rally there, and then from there we walk across the Edmond, go through downtown Selma, go across the bridge, and then there's often a rally on the other side of the bridge. That's on Sunday. Saturday is full with activities. The Hall of Resistance induction ceremony I mentioned will be Saturday, March the 8th. That's at 4 p.m. That's at 4 p.m. And there's, like I said, and we're excited also that we'll be bringing Ilyasa Shabazz, Malcolm X's daughter, to receive the award on his behalf.
Sure.
And so, and we'll be lifting her up and Betty Shabazz as well at that, during Selma as well. And like I said, there's lots of different workshops. There's youth activities. There's a parade. There's a street festival. There's a hip-hop, intergenerational hip-hop concert. Matter of fact, Baba Bilal used to work, Ashe, peace be upon him, used to be involved with the intergenerational hip-hop summit that goes on, that will be going on this year, been going on for years now. So there's a lot of activities, and the contact information is selmajubilee.com. That's selmajubilee.com. If people want to reach out to me directly, they can just reach me at reparationsj@gmail.com. The reparations, the letter J @gmail.com. reparationsj@gmail.com. The website again for Selma is Selma Jubilee. SelmaJubilee.com is the website.
Selma Jubilee. That's JUBILEE.com.
That's correct.
Okay.
And
Much
they'll get
thanks.
the whole schedule and find out how to prepare themselves for the different events.
Many thanks. Many thanks to you, Baba, for
Thank
coming.
you, brother, for giving us this time and for holding down that seat.
Yes, sir. We here. We here. Did I spell that right?
Ancestral Rock.
Selma Jubilee. Hope I spelled that right. Well, thank you for joining us. We're getting ready to move and touch base with the land. Another one of those untold stories, or not as widely told, as you well know, is the connection of the black farmers to the civil rights movement and how integral their solidarity was. Their very tangible solidarity was in keeping the movement going. And I'm just pointing out these things not just because I'm a farmer, but because it seems like, as the African proverb reminds us, you're a proverb man. If your only tool is a hammer, you treat every problem like a nail. And we don't even know how many tools we already got, in our possession. The power is in the people. Thank you much, Baba Jamoke, for joining us. Safe travels on the road, Safari and Gemma. And give our love
Thank you,
and
Baba.
regards to the family down there.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Baba, for giving us this time. Thank you, WRFG.
Much love.
All right.
WRFG Atlanta 89.3 on the FM dial. Yeah, man. We're giving thanks for the opportunity to give thanks, It's true indeed that we are the ones we've been waiting for. In a few moments, we'll be joined by our good brother, Eugene Alala, and we will take it into the depths of the earth as we always do. We love to march off the grid. So we're welcome to the month of March according to somebody's calendar. One thing we know, if we pay attention to the earth's calendar, spring is springing. Spring is springing, and that's a beautiful thing. Just like winter is a beautiful thing, just like autumn, all the seasons bring their gifts. So we're vibing out with our sister, Angie Stone, and we're truly giving thanks for her contribution to the process. Like we say, in between time, in between reasoning, we're looking forward to sharing some good music. Some of these greats who have gone before us and left a lasting message, a lasting gift. As our brother said, much love, much honor, much respect to the legacy, the memory of Iya Fulani, Suni Ali, her Earth Day today, her Earth Rising Day, ancestor, WRFG, Radio Free Griot, a mother of our movement, Like my next guest will understand, Yefulani is one of them people in her family who really, truly understand what it means to free the land, What it means to free the land. What does that really mean? They took it to the next level and left it for proceeding or successing generation, generation of success, or succeeding, that's the word, in the Oatlish language, succeeding generation to carry it on. Planting in the ground, They knew that nation time means feeding time. And we're grateful for this. We're grateful for this return, these reminders of a return to our natural self. We got our brother Eugene Alala about to join us. Tap in with us if you're needing to get out of the car, you're riding through the city, going forward after lunch. Tune in at 89.3 on the FM dial. If you need to get out the car, you can always join us online, wrfg.org, for all your streaming options. wrfg.org. I also like to join those of you, or greet those of you who are joining us on Facebook and YouTube and all the various modes of communication. Big up Iya Fulani in her ancestral station. Blessed Heavenly Earth Day. Also, much respect to our Jegna amongst us still. Akobin House, a prolific author and scholar and teacher, and Baba, warrior scholar, Baba Walimu Baruti. Bless up yourself, Baba. Long time. Long time. March 6th is a day with many gifts for us, you know. Want to say blessed Earth Day to the man called Stick Kunum. What's up, bro? RBG salute. Blessed rotation. Along with our sister Tashia, Mama Tashia Umoja from Colombo Academic Cultural Institute. I'm telling you, man, let's March 6th bring some gifts to our community. I'm talking about something we can see with our eyes, you know, and feel with our hearts. So we give thanks. On the phone line with us, on the line with us is our brother Eugene Alala. We're gonna play a little public service announcement and bring up our brother so we can have some family talk, some seasonal reasoning. You know them way there? Check this out.
Number 1, which was labeled "Thank you," began to ferment, giving off a pleasant aroma. Beaker number 2, which was labeled "You idiot," turned black. And lastly, beaker number 3, the ignored rice, began to rot, turning green. Many others around the world have repeated this experiment using different words, such as "I love you" and "I hate you." The results are shocking. The rice with negative words spoken to it always rots. IKEA UAE also conducted a similar experiment with plants. IKEA had school children speak with 2 identical plants for 30 days. One plant was spoken to with positive words and the other with negative words. Both the plants were kept in identical conditions. However, after 30 days, the results were astonishing. The plant which was showered with positive words thrived, and the plant which was spoken negatively to wilted and had drooping leaves. To watch the full IKEA UAE plant experiment, see the link in our description box. Both Dr. Emoto's and IKEA's experiments demonstrate that all words hold a vibration. These studies conclude that thoughts, feelings, and words affect the molecular structure of water, given water was used in the rice experiment and also the plant experiment, since plants are made up of up to 95% water. With the human body also being made of 70% water, these experiments demonstrate the power of thoughts, feelings, and words in creating our physical realities. So, have you been paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and words?
89.3 on the FM dial, WRFG.org, your station for progressive information and hand-picked quality music. Coming in hot on a Thursday afternoon, this is the Ancestral Rock. We just heard a piece of our story, another piece of our story. Sometimes we think of our story as one
almost a global saying.
I might have to even rewind that to make sure
Japanese.
you pick up what's being thrown down, as they would say, into the ground, you know, into the ground, into fertile ground. We're at the top of the hour and you're tuned to your station for progressive information and hand-picked quality music, WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM. On the phone line, our brother, farmer, teacher, Baba, a son of the soil, and truly a community leader, you know, in a very functional way. You know what I mean? And many more artists. Yes, I want to make sure that I'm still sharing this thing. I want y'all to see this again. Baba Eugene Alala. Eugene, welcome to the Ancestral Rock. We love it. How you feeling?
Give thanks for life, Kofi. Always grateful to be here with you. You know, the WRFG audience is a very insightful group of people. Active on the ground.
True.
So it's an honor to take time to be with whoever's here, and we hope to share it later. Hopefully you're able to record it because I'm having an issue recording on my side. But I give thanks for life, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Let's build. Spring is upon us. We can feel it. She's coming.
Yeah, man, looking good in that hoop house, brother. Looking like
from Studio A. You know what I mean?
Looking like a real spa, like a real time spa.
Yeah, man. I'm heating up. You know what I mean? I'm shining.
I see.
Yeah, man.
I see. I don't know if you tuned in to what we were just playing a little while ago with Dr.
Just the very end of the brother, you know, just the very end of Baba.
No, I mean Dr. Emoto.
Oh, yes.
Dr. Emoto. And they were just describing, I had never heard the portion about the rice. I heard about the water for years, you know, many times over. But how this very simple thing of writing I love you and you're beautiful on one set of bottles or glasses of water or rice or container or whatever, and then writing you stupid, I hate you and whatever foolishness on another set, how that clearly shows that the vibrations of our words matter, you know? And often I hear that and I'm thinking on the other side of the reality, maybe not the other side, but seems like another extreme that makes those things feel kind of trivial to people. We got tariffs, you know, we got just Trump in general, we got the Democrats and the Republicans, you know, we got people who've been robbing the earth, we got climate change, we got a lot of things happening that truly feel like emergency and bound to bring suffering, you know? And so taking all that in and going forward to Dr. Emoto, I'm wondering if it's oversimplified, it's of an oversimplification to say that truly, ultimately, we have the tools to our liberation. We possess, like, nothing else needs to be revealed or given to humanity for us to truly decide and manifest, you know, liberation. So that's just been what's been on my mind, you know, as we go into the spring, you know, as we breaking ground. I haven't made the pilgrimage yet. I've been inspired in the last few years to make a pilgrimage to Dr. George Washington Carver's grave. Before truly, you know, we always putting something in the ground, but before truly, you know, opening up for the spring, you know, since he's right here close to us and we know what he contributed to our reality, you know, respect is due, you know, so yeah, I just thought about my brother because I always appreciate love your perspective. First of all, your works go before you as a farmer, you know, as a grower, and through the years, I've appreciated love your perspective. It's like as an energy that iron sharpen iron, and you bring something to the village. You know, you're one of those who remind us of what we can't afford to forget. I heard Baba Maladoma Somé talking about that. I don't know if you heard that program, but I'm remind me, I'm gonna send you the whole lecture.
I want it all.
But in a nutshell, he was talking about how in his village, people are classified according to elements, right? The earth people are the real welcoming people. So he was talking to a gathering. He's like, so for instance, the earth people who would be welcoming you as you come in and give you a hug and all this kind of stuff. You know, you got the water people, you got the fire people who are like the diviners, you got the this and the that. And the elemental people, he said, those are the people who remind, their job is to remind you of what you cannot afford to forget.
And they was calling us essential workers during the pandemic.
Wow.
Essential, elemental,
Benny, same thing.
Foundation.
So let's talk, brother. I've been talking. I just welcome you to the show again, and you know, to the program. Just wanted to chop it up with you about the season that we in. You know, really, I remember Minister Farrakhan used to have a series called "The Time and What Needs to Be Done," or "The Time and What Is Required." So as we're going into the spring, as with all things considered, What's on Brother Eugene's mind to share with the family?
Give thanks, Kofi. Mutual respect. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mutual respect. What I'm gonna pull on the thread that you laid out there.
Ben.
So the thread about the power of our word intertwined with tariffs and Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump is a great reminder of the power of the word. Because I've had young students calling me, telling me everything just changed for me. I had plans to go do this in the summer and next year, and now the organization that I'm working for has to change all of their wording, and the grant that I was supposed to get has gotten put on hold. All of that is word sound power. What Donald did is he didn't detonate a bomb, he didn't close down a bank. He tweeted, he went on Truth Social, he said something in a press conference, and that word sound power is changing the molecular structure of the rice inside people's minds. They now feel terrified, hopeless, helpless, or inspired, motivated, committed. It all depends on how you take those words. Because the way he's playing it is where some stuff he says is directly negative, some stuff he says is just up to your interpretation. And then you do what you want with the water in your system. So I think that in alignment with Dr. Emoto's work, he is definitely demonstrating the power of both the written and spoken word and how it can set people into motion while somebody sits back and crafts the next thing to say. As far as for what's on my mind in this season is
before you go there, Robert, before you go there, you said a lot there, and I wanted to kind of dig in a little deeper into this plate of food. And it's real food. You know, we can share it with the world even during Ramadan. Everybody can sip.
Salam alaikum.
So, in terms of how the power of the word is demonstrated in that way, is it something that is, the word I want to use is, again, oversimplified. I used that word already. You know, is it oversimplified to say that it's really that simple and it's just a matter of who decides to access this power or use it for their benefit versus, you know, as a so-called victim? Is it really that simple? We talking about, again, all this going on. Like you said, people are terrified because of threats. But then a lot of those threats became real according to so-called law, you know? I mean, all of that. So is it that simple?
Well, simple doesn't mean easy. Right? So simple, yes, simple. It is that simple. Because earlier in the introduction, you mentioned, is it an oversimplification to say that we have everything we need for our liberation? Well, the truth of the matter is we did not bring anything with us. So if we know we're in the lineage of great liberators and great emancipators and great artists and thinkers and inventors and nurturers, then they didn't bring nothing with them either. So whatever they left here. So when we show up, it is here to pick up. We can go to Tuskegee. When Dr. Carver was born, there wasn't Tuskegee. So he couldn't go to Tuskegee. He had to build Tuskegee along with Booker T and the students and all of that. And now you, Kofi, me, Eugene, can go to Tuskegee. So we have more than they had. And we didn't bring anything with us. So our liberation may not be true. Meaning liberation is only if we're actually not free. And if I think I heard Bob Marley talking about how people came to him and complained to him and said, "Oh, but brother, I don't have the money to go get tea. I can't have tea. He said, if you want tea, go have tea." That seems simple, but if you want tea, if that's your priority, figure it out. We were never in a situation where we didn't have access within. And all of us have been supported by the earth our entire time being embodied. When we sleep, we're supported by the earth. A good brother of mine named Quentin Harrison, he had done some time in the military, and he talked about being out in Afghanistan in the middle of the night. and set a fire. He'd been up days and days and days, and now it's nighttime, and he can hear the animals and the people, and he's got a fire in the desert. And he said, but you know, brother, at some point you got to go to sleep. Yeah, I mean, that's part of being in this thing. At some point you got to go to sleep. And he said, and when you decide, man, I'm trying to stay up, and you fall asleep, the last thing you think is, well, I hope God got me. And then you lay your body down and you go travel, you go to New York, you go, to the ocean, you go be with a woman that you love, but your body is laying in the desert, unprotected from hyenas, from whatever, because when the fire go out, anything could change. But we really don't have no choice. If we was trying to depend on laws, come on, man. We were illegal from the beginning by the law of the corporation that has been overlaid on top of the land. But we have never been illegal as far as the land goes. We have decided that it's undesirable. We've decided that it's undesirable to have certain kind of work or certain kind of clothing, or having people have certain kinds of opinions about us. We've decided that that's undesirable. And so we have made adjustments in our life that give us benefit and vulnerability. So if somebody decides to go a particular route, maybe academic or whatever, they get the benefit of having community and having mentorship and having business connections and having all of this, but you're also vulnerable because all of those connections are primarily within an academic structure. If somebody decides to go the entrepreneurial route, like myself, you get the benefit of setting your own hours, deciding how much money you want to retain. You get the benefit of only working with the people that you want to work with, but you also got the vulnerability of somebody deciding they don't like you, somebody trying to sue you, somebody trying to squeeze you out of deals. But the access within is the same for the academic or the farmer. So whoever decides to take that time will see those benefits.
Benny, simple thing. Brother Eugene Alala always dropping it like it's hot. Speaking of the farm, it's warming up, and then they're talking about another polar vortex coming through, and we've gotten used to this as growers, in terms of the unpredictability or the shifting climate. You could put it that way. Definitely the unpredictability if you're based on the past and what you used to know, And I say it like that because that's a thing in itself. You know what I mean? Who was that Toffler that said the illiterate of the 21st century will not be the one who cannot read or write, but the one who cannot unlearn and relearn. It makes sense because there's factors, very tangible factors in creation that have shifted and call for a shift in our actions, our consciousness, our focus, and all these kind of things. That's what is beautiful to hear from people like yourself, because the earth is ground zero for that information. The ground zero for the information, just working in the earth. So many messages we get on a daily basis. There's so much so-called science. I put it in air quotes, not because I'm opposed to true science, but that's nuance in terms of this society. But regardless, even the Western science has now verified of all the health benefits of one putting their hands in the soil. All the stress relieving microbes that are there, all the the things that help to balance anxiety and all that. So this is not no kind of pseudoscience or hippie talk.
No,
ain't nothing wrong with the hippies.
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or so, Benny. So as you were talking, and I kind of cut you because I wanted to go deeper into something you said. But as we're going into the spring, on the farm, what's on your heart to share with the family?
I was watching on Instagram. I saw Oyun Botanical Gardens had done a post with the young sister out there, Habiba, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Fertilizing the crops.
Yeah, man.
That's what time it is right now. We've been on this site only not quite 2 years. So a lot of transition, a lot of change, hitting the ground running. And as you said, combined with having to adjust to climate transitions and nothing's the way it used to be.
Right.
And so the stress for the plants, our focus right now is mitigating that through fertilization. And when we talk about fertilization, we're talking about sea minerals, blackstrap molasses, soybean meal, a little bit of lime, mixing that with humates, which is really the dark, sticky aspects of subsoils that are just deep in the ground. Putting that into the water, swirling that vortex, letting it sit open under the sky, the night sky, for 2 or 3 days, and keep spinning it and letting that fermentation start to happen. Then pouring that as a soil drench. And people have all types of different ways that they like to do it, and formulas that they like to do. But the point of the matter is, if we are, especially for those who are observing Ramadan, it becomes very serious, or it maybe becomes more pronounced when we fast, how often we eat. You know what I mean? When we fast, we realize, man, I eat when I'm, for all types of reasons, not necessarily hunger. But the earth is dependent on an interconnected web of beings to come and feed it. And as humans, we can bring more food. We can concentrate it. We can accelerate it. We can really promote that, especially if we know that what we're going to want to do at some point is get food back from the land, right? So that's been the main thing, is understanding that we have this soil as a responsibility. It's another relationship. I think it was Joshua Maponga who said, and this is, West African priest. So these are not my words. These are his words. And he said, every man needs to have 2 wives because one wife isn't enough. You got to have the wife that's the soil. And if you can't make that productive, then don't even busy yourself trying to make a woman produce a child for you. Right. And so that's really it, is integrating this experience as more than a job or a vocation or an enterprise, but it's a relationship.
Really?
It's a relationship. And so many of us will jump from job to job. Many of us will do a lot of different things when it comes to how to make some money. But what KRS-One said is, look, man, if you're dependent on hip hop or rapping to make money, then most likely you will flip-flop on it. I think you just mentioned the quote earlier about, if you don't love the people, you'll probably end up selling them out. It's the same thing here. So the fertilization is showing the love prior to harvest.
Prior to harvest. Very, 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 very important. And that's part of Dr. Carver's legacy. On some real technical stuff, Baba Eugene, you just shared a formula. So I want to ask you a question. There's a conception that once the fermentation starts, there's a lot of aerobic bacteria or anaerobic bacteria, and so you just mentioned waiting until and leaving it for 2 or 3 days. What's the science behind that in a nutshell?
Because we are looking at everything as relationship and complementary. So we don't think that the power for the plant growth is inside of the fertilization. We think that the fertilizer is necessary to be a food for the organisms that we've already started to cultivate in the soil. So you can have different bacteria in the fermentation than you have in the soil, and you give them an opportunity to all get to know one another and say, look, we got food, we got moisture, and here we are. Some of us from the south side, some of us from the west side, north side, east side. Here come the music, the sphere. The planet's been alive for the last couple weeks.
Yes, sir.
So there's already music. There's already harmonics. Right. And when it's been wet over here in South Fulton, the frogs are going crazy over in the trenches. True. So there's all this harmonics. So we also added to our fertilization. We took soil from every field and then soil from the woods. And we have those native organisms, put that in the fermentation and stir them around. We trying to really bring, when you looked at the cover of the Marvin Gaye album, I think it was the one that had the Ernie Barnes painting on it from Good Times.
Okay. Now you're talking about What's Going On?
It is What's Going On, right?
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's not What's Going On, because What's Going On is the classic, but it might be. Or I Want You, but it's the party where it's the Ernie Barnes painting that was at the beginning of the show, Good Times, where everybody's partying and dancing and clothes are pulled up and all that. That's what we're doing with the fermentation. The fermentation means there has now been activation.
Benny.
And what we're really putting into the soil is activation and life force.
So you're not putting them on the plants. You're applying them like
soil
drenching
into the soil.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for explaining that. We're linking up, tuned in live with Baba Eugene Alala from Grow Where You Are. He's joining us from the farm right now. For those of y'all joining us in some of those apps, you can check him out in the greenhouse, in the hoop house. And we want to talk to you about that as we return. We'll take a little short break because when we speak about the fact that gardening in this time requires of us some adjustments, to say the very least, right? The understatement of the year. I want to talk about some of those things that are fundamental. And again, since the power is in the people, I know that everything ain't about, even with all the talk of boycott in the air and many different conversations that have arisen with this Trump presidency, I would say the Creator does have a way of reminding us what's important, at very least, you know what I'm saying? And so all this talk, just like with COVID, there's this talk about self-reliance. There's people who are actually working towards that, have been working towards that, or people who are newly inspired to come back home in all them kind of ways. So still, at the end of the day, we have some very tangible things that we can do and very tangible tools that are within our community. So I've seen so many people put up hoops with bamboo, like the hoop you have behind you. Of course, as you said so poignantly earlier, there's benefits and then there's, I don't know what the word you use, risk or...
Vulnerabilities.
Vulnerabilities, yes. A perfect word, perfect word.
Yeah, it's just vulnerabilities. But if you can see them, you adjust for them, you have expectations.
Right. Perfect word. Much better than risk.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like that captures the essence of what we're talking about, and we can create our own language. We sing our own song. We can speak life without denying reality.
Absolutely.
Because often that's the hesitation in the public, the very genetically engineered hesitation in the public consciousness, I would add, is to kind of, it's just like, well, that's not real. Let's keep it real. What is reality?
So only debt is real?
Right.
So only bills are real? I mean, bills are... So maybe you were getting ready to take a break, so I'll stop.
I'm going to take a break and come right forward. Our brother Eugene Alala is with us, celebrating some of these wonderful gifts that have come our way in the form of musical masters, musical giants, musical messengers. Check this out. Vibration.
Mr. Emoto's work provides factual evidence that human vibrational energy, thoughts, words, ideas, and music affect the molecular structure of water. Please remember that water comprises over 70% of a mature human body and covers the same amount on our planet. Water is the very source of all life. This photo shows the beautifully formed geometric design of the Yushi Spring water. This next photo is from the Shimanto River, the last clean spring in Japan. Notice the extraordinary geometric forms. The fact that the molecular structure of water can be affected by our consciousness, our intent, and our sounds is extremely important. This photo is from the Mount Cook Glacier in New Zealand. Mr. Emoto has been visually documenting these molecular changes in water by means of his photographic techniques. He freezes droplets of water, then examines them under a dark field microscope that has photographic capabilities. His work clearly demonstrates the diversity of the molecular structure of water and the effects of the environment upon the structure of the water. This photo is from the fountain in Lourdes, France. This photo is from contaminated water from the Yodo River in Japan. In this photo, we can compare the contaminated water with clean stream water. Look at the difference. Mr. Emoto decided to see what effects music would have upon the structure of water. He placed distilled water between two speakers for several hours while playing different music and then photographing the crystals that formed after the water was frozen. This photo is of water being exposed to Beethoven's Pastorale. This photo is the effect of Bach's Air for the G string on the water. This photo is water exposed to Chopin.
Where you are joining us on the farm, sharing about life. Just another reminder, I want to play that forward for emphasis. It's a repetition is the mother of knowledge. Some of the things that Dr. Emoto's work, just as one example, what has been shared with us in so many different ways. And what's important to me, again, as we're reasoning with our brother Eugene, is knowing our tools, knowing the tools in our cave, being aware, first and foremost, that we have tools. And then after that, Eugene, I know that coming close behind is the imperative of learning, relearning how to use those tools. And as it relates to gardening, as we talked about earlier, many people have that on their hearts right now. I need to put some food in my backyard. I need to grow some food. As someone who has applied yourself to learn this skill over many years, what would be your reaction to that? Is that something you're encouraging, that people just start just planting, just throwing something in the ground? Is it beneficial for them to seek some form of guidance if that's available to them? How does that work?
Give thanks. I hope y'all can hear me. There's a train going by here in South Fulton. You got me good?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, wonderful. It's interesting that you say that because there's a dear brother named Brother Rich that we all, well, not all, but many of us listen to.
Yeah.
And he recently reached out through a mutual colleague and asked about this very thing, about starting a garden. And we've had the opportunity to start gardens for midwives and for athletes and different people. And the first thing that we have to kind of assess with people is what drove you to this space? Was it an illness? Was it going to a farmer's market? Was it traveling to another country and tasting real food? What was it? Was it working in someone's garden? Was it a memory of a beloved elder, or working at a community garden or a church garden or a school garden? Because what we have to, I feel like it's our responsibility as professionals to account for and speak life to when it comes to these people who are having these interests, is that you're essentially asking to start another relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And every relationship has a steep learning curve, requires work, and actually has boundaries. There are things that can be done and things that can't be done, and it ain't got nothing to do with whether you want to or don't want to. And so when we look at it from that perspective, hey, are you willing and ready to start a new relationship? And a relationship that is going to be productive, it's going to be fruitful, and it's also going to be challenging and demanding.
True.
This is not a situation where the earth works for us.
Right.
This is a situation where, man, I hope you all can still hear me.
Yeah, we hear you clearly.
This is a situation where it's a commitment. And I would encourage each person to look closely at themselves in relationship to commitment before getting into any of this. Because what happens in this particular commitment is that you plant something, and depending on your level of care, your level of time investment, and going back to Dr. Emoto's work, what word, sound, vibration is happening for you when you're interacting in this commitment. You may get good results, you may get bad results, but bad results actually means death. And people deal with death in different ways. Because to see plants dying, some people don't think nothing about that. They got plants dying in their house right now, it's no big deal. Some people take it serious. You know what I mean? They take it real serious.
Yeah.
And it's not like a pet. The pet is going to come to you if you don't feed it for 2 or 3 days. It's not going to just lay in the corner, and it's going to try to let it be known. It's going to scratch at the door. It's going to be going at the cupboards. It's going to start on the furniture. When we get into this relationship here, a few years ago, actually during the pandemic, the champ, Layla Ali, reached out and said, look, I'm interested in putting a garden in my home. And she very clearly pointed out to me, she said, Eugene, I'm undefeated. My father had some losses, but I'm undefeated. I'm used to being good at what I try. But she's also really good at accepting coaching. So to your point, should people reach out? Yeah, they should reach out. Should they reach out to a professional? Yeah, if you know a professional. But know that if you're reaching out to a professional in March, they're very busy, and they're going to be busy from now until October. So should you reach out to somebody in your family? Absolutely. If there's someone in your family who already has it, definitely come humble. Remember Kendrick, come humble, be humble, and understand that you don't come with questions, you come in service. What can I do? Do you need weeding? And if you don't know anything, just offer the fact that you know how to follow instructions. After assessing your own level of interacting with commitment, how do you actually interact with commitment? Not how you think or you like to think of yourself interacting with commitment. When you say something about food, do you stick to it? When you say to yourself something about exercise, do you stick to it? When you say to yourself something about what content you're going to watch or not watch, do you stick to it? It's not about perfection. It's about assessment. It's not about right or wrong, good or bad. It's about assessment. Am I a 50%, 60%, 80% commitment type of person? Because in springtime, 50% commitment with the right soil, the right seeds, and good rain, you're going to think you are really doing good. And then winter gonna come around.
Until the dog days come.
You know what I mean?
Don't give them no spoilers, Eugene. Don't give them no spoilers.
Winter comes and you need 80% commitment at least.
True indeed.
Or you just gonna stop, because it's hard to be out in the cold or with wet socks, or you know what I mean?
True.
We all got backs. Every back needs to be stretched. And if you're not good with stretching, then you're not gonna be a farmer. You could be a gardener, but you're not finna be a farmer. And I got people telling me on a regular basis, oh, I'm finna master this and master that. They looking at me, man, I done been doing this for 20 years and not even professionally. Like 10 of that years trying to figure it out under other people with no resources. And I'm gonna tell you, you think you're gonna master this in 3 years, 2 years, 1 year? Nah, man. This is not Instagram.
Right. Or microwave clothes. I mean, there's not many sustainable skills or stations or, skills, tasks, posts that one would master in 3 years. You know what I mean? And at the same time, I don't think you would disagree that there is such a thing as, I want to say, beginner's luck. Their mother nature does truly fulfill that whole thing of, like they say about, if you take one step to God, God takes 20 steps to you.
And it's to keep us engaged.
Yeah. So there's definitely something there that is motivational,
yes.
Naturally motivational. And I can't drop one of the points when I got from one of your points, one of the first things you said in response to the question was, well, let's assess first what brought you to this point.
Yes.
And that's important because if, fear as a motivator is not sustainable. As a catalyst to a more, balanced track, all good, lack and all them things. Oh, the government gonna shut, we might be, all that kind of stuff. It's not necessarily a sustained motivation. However, it's nothing that to be shunned. It's just is what it is. So your point is to sustain this. Let's do ourselves the favor of making a self-assessment. And you gave some very clear factors to consider. Time commitment, because practically day to day, bread and butter, earth and worms. It takes commitment to sustain a garden of plants, living beings. It just does on one level or another. So it could be also a thing of when you make that assessment, maybe just the scale, the amount, what you attempt to take on may be what is shifted. I don't think Brother Eugene at all is saying, but he's here to speak for himself. I'm just saying what I think, and then I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, big brother. I'm not saying, I don't think you're saying think twice before you really nurture the need to feed your desire to feed yourself. It's just to look at it as you would look at when you think about having another baby. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah, definitely. And even more so, because this is the idea with a child, is that at some point it's going to mature, and in the scope of the child's life, it is walking and independent for a vast majority longer than it was dependent on you. Right? Because you're looking at a child 10, 11, they talking back, eating what they want, talking to who they going where they, you know what I mean? By the time they 20, they're independent. Then hopefully they're going to live 60 more years, right? Whereas the garden, it's not going to get independent of you because it's an extension of us. It's not a relationship that we ever hope to mature and walk away from. It's actually one that's going to get deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's going to continue to engulf us. My teacher, Adonijah, says a very poignant quote. He said, look, if you plant up your environment, you're not going to be the same person because your environment is going to dictate your behavior. So the other part of the assessment is, how willing am I to be changed?
That's a serious question right there.
How willing am I to be changed? Because you're going into something with assumptions based on what you know from grandmama or the person at the church or what you learned in college or whatever. You coming into it with assumptions. But when you get onto a piece of land and you start, what is Harbin Road? What has your farm at Harbin Road done to you? How much has it changed you, Kofi? How much did it change the 10 other iterations of people before us?
True.
These lands don't allow you to come and interact with them, and then you're going to stay the same. You're going to still have the same focus. It's going to smash you, wake you up at night, make you think about how many thunderstorms. They having thunderstorms, and they just thinking about trying to make sure they got toilet paper. You thinking about what field might be flooding. Is the hoop house okay?
The benefit of responsibility. What you were speaking of there are such great benefits, if one only knew, of responsibility, which one of them is awareness, heightened awareness.
Whoa.
Heightened awareness,
Teach.
And with that, naturally, with that deep interest will come not just awareness, but following the cues to build skill. You know, following the cues to build skill, because awareness. Okay, well, I'm seeing the nature of this thing. I'm learning more and more and more and more year after year of what it takes to maintain this thing, and to and what it means to have a dance with this pear tree, or this certain kind of variety of vegetables, or you know what I mean? Yeah, it's a serious thing. Our brother Eugene Alala teaching hard. Eugene, I'm gonna take a short break, and I want to touch something from Grenada. I think we've been in session before where I touched this. I don't mind repeating it time and time again for y'all loyal listeners. This is from the it's called "Feeding Ourselves," a short piece from the Grenada Revolution, which, as I've said many times, and I'm thinking of Grenada right now. March is the anniversary of some atrocities that took place there. With the assassination of Maurice Bishop. No, that wasn't. I think that was in October. Let me get it right. March and October. But I think this might be the anniversary of the revolution. Let me get my facts straight, and I'll make sure I correct myself. However, regardless, in the midst of all that we're dealing with right now, when we think about this whole question that Marcus Garvey raised, that what humans have done, humans can do, and looking at what the Grenada Revolution not just meant symbolically, or even became a symbol because of what it was able to achieve. Many stories which are not told. So we just thinking, Eugene, it makes me think of the proverb that say, if you ever think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito. You know what I mean? Well, let's take a look at Grenada, talk about what they had to do to establish what they have now. Big up our brother Jesse Owens. I see you on the link. Last time I seen him was in Lemerritt Park, brother Eugene. I know you know them regions of the world. WRFG Atlanta, 89.3 FM. I play a very sincere and a special and a very important announcement, and then be forward with much more. Tune in to the Ancestral Rock. Stay tuned. We're here until 4 o'clock.
RFG Public Affairs Bulletin Board announcement. The Celebration of Life ceremonial tribute honoring the legacy of warrior, musician, and political activist Sheikh Baba Bilal Sunni Ali will take place on Sunday, March 23rd. This tribute will recognize his contributions to music, activism, and the ongoing struggle for freedom, justice, and self-determination. The event will feature concert performances and a traditional second line procession. Handkerchiefs will be provided, and participants are welcome to bring their own. Refreshments will also be served. That's the Celebration of Life ceremonial tribute for Sheikh Baba Bilal Sunni Ali on Sunday, March 23rd. Participants are required to RSVP for admittance. For more details and to RSVP, the email is bsacelebrationoflife@gmail.com. That's bsacelebrationoflife@gmail.com.
I believe we gon' be free in my lifetime.
Of our goods put to the benefit of our people. The whole question of agro-industrial development, the whole question of our people looking into our culture, our identity, studying our history to see how we can change this process, how we can start holding what belongs to us within our country for our own development. And we see development coming into being within our country.
Minister of Finance Bernard Cord explained the significance of the new agro-industrial plan at the first international conference in solidarity with Free Grenada.
With 400 years of private sector in Grenada and 400 years of 8 million pounds of mangoes falling on the ground and rotting on trees throughout Grenada, it took the PRG to take those mangoes and to can and bottle them, put mango slices, mango juice, mango nectar, nutmeg jelly, tamarind juice, tamarind nectar, and all the other ranges of fruits and juices. All of them, first of all, researched, developed, perfected, and mass-produced by the People's Revolutionary Government after 400 years of private sector.
The fishing industry is another example of how British colonialism kept Grenada from developing its potential. Since the revolution, the PRG has acquired a modern fishing fleet, and men and women are being trained in fishing techniques at the new fishing school. Grenada, a country surrounded by water, found itself actually importing most of its fish and unable to feed its people properly otherwise.
What we produce here must belong to us. What's ours is ours. We don't want what America has, or Canada has, or any other country. We want what we have to be ours.
I am responsible for coordinating food and nutrition programs throughout Grenada, Calico, and Petit Martinique. What we have done since we started is to initiate a system of nutrition assistance to each parish. Our nutrition assistants have been able to make direct contact and face-to-face contact with people in the community so that they're able to discuss what their nutritional problems are, particularly with their young children.
A campaign to eat local has been necessary because colonialism encouraged the people for generations to think that expensive imported food was better. Local foods were symbolic of poverty.
It's only when we recognize the root causes of this kind of problem. Root causes in our situation lies in the effects of imperialism and the way they want to keep us down, the way the countries who have the money, the way the countries who produce the grain, for example, which is what our people depend on. 70% of our energy intake comes from flour. And that is controlled by the United States. The export of it, the price of it, and all that, right? And people are encouraged to eat this rather than to eat what they produce. People are encouraged to continue at a low productivity level so that they continue to be the consumers of wheat.
The Caribbean is seen fundamentally, or Latin America is seen fundamentally, as a collection of banana republics. Our people are not respected. Our suffering is dismissed. In fact, some people see us as Neanderthals.
WRG Atlanta 89.3 on the FM dial. Again, from a documentary called Feeding Ourselves, Grenada Revolution documentary on YouTube. We're tuning in with our brother Eugene Alala. We got a few more moments. Yeah, Eugene, I couldn't help but share that again,
Yeah, man. Give
the
thanks.
revolution is actually March the 13th. So that is the date of the revolution, the Grenada Revolution. And there's so much that has been uncovered or shared of recent years in terms of them connections that make it so clear to us, and for me, worthy of mention, because again, it shows that the power truly is in the people and that we all have a part to play. That sometimes people hear about this thing that happened over here or this thing that happened over here, and they feel it's just isolated. This group of people just rose up and did something, Eugene just did something. Kofi just did something, such and such, but they don't know about the mycelium network. And that's where I want to seal up, the program, There's so much that we could go get into. I mean, there's so much that is pertinent. I'm just thinking again of the fact that we have before us an opportunity based on reality on another level, quote unquote, hidden public consciousness. I mean, tariffs. Let's talk about tariffs for a minute in general, and what you see the effect that they may have. I'm not asking you to prophesy, just what you're feeling. And again, ultimately, the whole question is, what can we do as everyday people to continue to empower ourselves as we take this, as we return home, as we realize, we accept that this is a standard, is a system, is a discipline, It's not just something willy-nilly. Let me just have some greens over here, and they kind of, this, that, and third. It's another relationship, as you said. With all that being considered, here we are. So first, just about the tariffs in general, what's your understanding of how that will affect something like local growers, people who are growing, or even corporate growers? I don't know if there's there might be a different effect. But we've been talking all this time about how we're going to grow our own food and supporting people who are doing this. So what does that look like, do you see? And how does that reveal where we are in the supply chain, if you will?
Woo, come on, Kofi. You said we had minutes. So I'll say this. To your point about this isn't a willy-nilly thing as far as producing food production. I think one of the things that would help us, especially, I learned a lot coming to Atlanta from California. And what I learned is that Atlanta is a city, especially the Black community, that is very rooted in institutions. Those may be academic, they may be religious, they may be cultural. A lot of institutional heritage in Atlanta, and the work that you do in the community that is parallel with the agriculture, as far as the Bob Marley Fest and Malcolm X Fest, and just continually interfacing and promoting with Habesha. This work is to firm up, in my assessment, institutions, to make us understand what it is to have institutions. And I look at this work of agriculture, of food production, of food sovereignty, as moving into the stage of becoming institutionalized. And we have to be the ones documenting the institutional memory. My mother, Carol Cook, is a librarian by trade. And one of the things, when I first decided to come to Atlanta, leaving California, she said, listen, success or failure is up to you. If you fail, you can't come back here. And then she gave me a digital camera and said, document everything you do, because ain't nobody else gonna tell your story. Nobody else knows it, and no one's interested. And then there are, on the far extreme, people who know it, who can see it, and are doing everything they can to keep it hidden. So the institution part is the documentation. We have to be documenting what it is that we have learned and what it is that we have experienced. And that can be in how a farm is designed. That can be in our social media. That has a lot of different concepts to it. But when we talk about tariffs, again, we're talking about the words of institutions, right? If Donald Trump isn't president and he's talking about tariffs, it's an actor talking about things that he may or may not know about. Once he's president, it's an actor being fed lines by people who know more than him. And what he says actually has temporary power, not because of him, but because of the seat. So when we look at power, we want to understand, are we bringing the power to the seat, or does the seat infer its power to us? And when we get out of the seat, we no longer have power. Production. When I look at tariffs, tariffs are a way to regulate the distribution after productivity. So really, any of us standing around walking up and talking about tariffs, we better be producing something before we're even interested in this conversation, because it's definitely it's directed at producers elsewhere, and then the consumer is the person that just has to deal with the reaction of it. We don't really have much say so. And in a consumer-driven economy like we have in the United States, most of us over the last 50 years have grown accustomed to thinking we are shopping our way into citizenship. The more we purchase, the more we shop at holidays, the better of a citizen we are, because we've actually been taught this. But that's not how this place was begun. It wasn't started as a consumer-based economy, and it can't survive as a consumer-based economy. So for anybody who's concerned about tariffs, I would say, study money. Understand what money is first. Study money. Because most of the time we are talking about things that we don't even actually understand. How is money created into the system? How is it absorbed? Where does it go? What happens if I invest in Bitcoin and I take money that was created into the system by banking and all of that, and I take that and I purchase Bitcoin, where did the money just go to? What happened to it? If I got folks in Nigeria and I earn money in America and I send it Western Union to Nigeria, did that money leave the country? Is that now, how does that affect the balance sheet of America? If we have remittance payments being sent to Africa, to South America, to Asia, the money from the United States that the United States is printing that has their serial number on it is being exported. And if it goes into digital currency, it literally evaporates. So then for the budget to be consistent for us as privileged people in the global context, that means more printing has to happen. Because that money's it's literally just flowing out of the country because we're not a production-based country right now. So I don't know what the plan is, but I do know what we need to do is study money and begin producing. More than beats, more than television shows, more than internet content. We need to be producing tangible goods, services, and then holding assets, rare assets.
Because at the end of the day, that's why they become popular and make people rich, because they're necessary. So start with the necessary. That's
Man.
Alala. We got the 7-minute drill. I gave you the $1 million question, and you slam dunked it as always. By making it simple and tangible. And that's the reality. So we give thanks always to link up with the brother and touch base. Before we let you go, give us the website, please, for more information. Any other way that we can contact you. And,
it's like nowadays the only website everybody wants is Instagram. So on Instagram, grow where you are. On TikTok, grow where you are. On Patreon, grow where you are, and growwhereyouare.farm, growwhereyouare.farm for the website. Give thanks for the opportunity. One love to everybody in Atlanta, the whole WRFG family, for continually broadcasting through all types of scenarios and situations and challenges.
Yeah, man, we're there, man. Give thanks, Eugene. Much love. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, man.
404-523-8989 is our number up here. We're leaving up out of here. Station for progressive information around the clock. Let's go.
Right. So when they move in the future, that's okay. I've got to get Yana at least on board. But what do you do? Like,
yeah, that's why I'm on here.
Yeah, but I mean, like, you only have 30 seconds now until the show's going.
Oh, yes, they're wearing on your them wear up the north side. I am not preparing to leave your city. Jogging on the sand in a Babylon land. Keeping fit to conquer creation. Jogging on the sand in a